What's up, Clemson Tiger baseball fans? This is another segment of Around the Bases, and right now we're going to talk about the mid-season review. All right, I got to be honest, on my end, it's not going to be pretty, but we're going to get into that here in just a minute. I'm your host, Big Al. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, Corey Welsh. Make sure if you like these clips that you want to get in like and follow on Facebook, like and subscribe on YouTube. It helps us expand the brand and get the conversation started. And look, that's what we want to do is talk about Clemson baseball, whether good or bad. So, Corey, look, we're just going to dive right in here. It's not looking good for Clemson baseball this year. You know, we talked about this a little bit when we spoke on the segment of the sweep of, at the hands of Miami. It was not a cool weekend for the Tigers as after they got beat up in the midweek. I don't even know that we mentioned that. The College of Charleston came to town and just whipped us again for the second year in a row, I believe. Or maybe it was 2 years before. But anyways, it was not a good week in all for the Tigers. But we're going to give our mid-season grade. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you my grade for the team as a whole. Then you're going to come in and kind of give some individual grades to give the fans something to think about. Look, I'm giving the Clemson baseball team a D-. Okay. And honestly, the only reason I'm not giving them a failing grade is because at one point in this season, they won 4 ACC series in a row. That's hard to do. I don't care what part of the ACC you're facing, whether you're facing the best teams, whether you're facing the middle or the lower part, of that lineup. It doesn't matter to me. 4 series in a row is pretty good. And, it was looking like they had turned things around a little bit. They were doing certain things better here and there. They just couldn't put it all together. We were waiting for that to happen. Not only has it not happened, it's fallen completely apart. They lost 2 of their last, 2 of 3 to Virginia at home. Yeah. They got destroyed by College of Charleston, swept by Miami. The starting pitching, it did not have a good weekend, and that's something that they've been doing better. So that's kind of tough to see. The starting pitching's not doing good. The relief is not really doing very good, other than maybe Clark. I think Clark's doing a good job as usual. But we're not hitting well. We're not fielding well. We're not running bases well. Honestly, I'm sitting here this past weekend thinking, what is one thing this Clemson baseball team does well as a team? And I couldn't come up with anything. And that kind of tells you the state of Clemson baseball right now. Without being sarcastic, I've got nothing. It's not been a consistent year in any way, shape, form, or fashion. I mean, there are times where Parker's hitting the ball really well, where Griez is hitting the ball really well, and then Brewer will have a streak. Kier might have a streak, or Hackenberg, but they are not ever on the same page at the same time for more than maybe a game here or there. The pitching's been the same way, very inconsistent, which has kind of plagued Clemson for several years now, not counting the shortened year last year. We've been able to count on the relief pitching. That's been a good thing for Clemson in the past. We thought it was going to be a huge part of their success this year. Has not happened. I would say the most consistent guy has been Clark, which is what you expected. But even he has had his rough patches this year. So it's been kind of tough. It's been kind of tough to take, especially as a passionate Clemson baseball fan. It's been a bit rough. But I want you to kind of give your midseason grades, break it down for us a little bit better, maybe give us some hope going in the future. What you got?
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm thinking that. What I'm trying to do when I'm giving these grades out is think about the season as a whole. We'll start out with the pitching side. Think about our starting rotation opening weekend. You had Sharp, Olenchuk, Grice. No 3 of those guys are in the rotation right now. So, right. I mean, whether it be injuries, they don't believe in the performances they've been getting and things like that. So I'm giving them, I know you're a D- guy. Okay. I'm going to look at it half full here. I did go with a C. Okay. It's more of a neutral grade and things like that. But if you think about, like, there have been some guys that have kind of let us down, like we talked about going into the start of the year, the bullpen, being a strength. Overall, I feel like it has not. But at the same time, there has been guys that I feel like have stepped up. I think personally, I believe Gilbert has been as good as what he can do on the back end of the game. I mean, you're looking at, like, without take out Sunday and things like that. Like I said, it was a tough outing. I mentioned that in our previous, but he's at 27 innings pitched, a 1.33 ERA, but he has a 1-3 record. A lot of that comes to lack of run production at the end of the games. Like, he's going in there with he has no wiggle room whatsoever. If he gives up 1, he gets the loss.
Right.
Even in 27 innings, he's got 36 strikeouts. So, I think he's been as good as he could be. A couple others, out of the bullpen. Nick Clayton's been solid as well. 23 innings, 2.31 ERA. That was a guy that we didn't talk much about kind of going, into the year. I'm pulling these stats from D1Baseball.com. Their opponents' batting average are hitting 188 against him. And then the other one, like you've touched on, is Matt Clark. He's really kind of taken that long reliever role. And every time, like I feel like from a fan's perspective when watching them, when Clark's in the game, like, all right, this is the one that, all eggs are in the basket. You kind of got that feel on Sunday when he came in as well. And then we'll get into the starting pitching. Like the starting pitching depth has been an issue. Early in the year, we talked about not having that guy on Sunday. At the beginning of the year, those first few weekends, we were rolling a guy out there, and you go 2 to 3 innings, and it's like, man, you've already played 2 games, and you're so deep in the pen. Again, you're asking Gilbert to come back on either back-to-back days or he threw extended on Friday and things like that. That has to be more consistent. I think Hoffman has done a nice job of filling in. Askew, for the most part, has been good. I know he had the rough start the other day, but I think he's kind of warranted that, hey, out of the guys that are available, he gives us the best opportunity to win on Saturday. And then we talked about England, where it's kind of been up or down. I still think, like, you got to roll that guy out there on Friday because he's got the best chance out of the guys from a stuff perspective to shut down an opposition when you're typically facing the other team's one. So I go with a C there. Not great. And there's been some tough, like the midweek games. I mean, I feel like as a whole, Clemson has struggled, with the ability to just find the strike zone and get ahead and count so they can actually pitch. I think that's really been kind of the problem on the midweeks. So anything that, you see different there or something that may jump up to you or?
Not necessarily. I do like that you mentioned Nick Clayton. We've talked about him throughout the year about how well he's done throughout the year. We didn't mention him at the beginning of the season. So that was my mistake, my oversight, not mentioning him because he's been great for the most part. He really has. And Matt Clark, like you said, of course, we talked about him. He's done well. I think the difference with Gilbert is, you talk about he's got no margin for error. And you're right about that. It's not that his ERA is bad or anything. It's just that we're used to him coming in, striking out 3 guys, and not giving up a run. Which is the situation we brought him in several times, and he just hasn't been able to deliver on that. He's almost always giving up 1 run, and that's kind of tough because we're not used to that as Clemson baseball fans. We're used to having Spires come in or whoever it may be come in and just shut them down. And Gilbert was that guy, and it's just he hasn't had quite the success we anticipated him having so far this year because he has come in tough spots. A lot of times they've been putting him in early in games, too early, in my opinion. But it's just something he doesn't seem to be as comfortable in. And I think he's lost a little bit of confidence, and that's why I think he's having some of these issues he's having. But yeah, it's not that these guys. I love the fact that you brought up. I want to say that first. I love the fact that you brought up none of the starters at the beginning of the season are the starters now. That's a pretty fascinating thing. So that kind of tells you they're searching. They're trying to do what they can, and I think the rotation is what it is right now. I think it's Anglin, I think it's Askew, and I think it's Hoffman. I think that's the guys you got to roll with moving forward and see what you can work out, especially with David Sharp apparently not being able to pitch. Whatever's ailing him, and he can't get back in the rotation. I think he would be kind of a relief type guy, who is how I would use him. I wouldn't mind him as a Sunday starter either. I think either one of those roles would be fine for him. But yeah, they've run across some tough luck for sure. But it's just what we thought in the beginning of the season has not come true. We thought these arms were going to be dominant. We didn't think they were going to be, still searching midseason. We thought these guys were going to be able to come in, shut them down, and I think that's where kind of most of the angst comes from.
Yeah. All right, so we'll slide over to offensive side. You're cool with that? Okay. Yeah, now with that, and again, I'm still like kind of searching of how to do this correctly. I'll go ahead and throw it out there. Probably a C- is what I got. And going into the start of the year, I think you and I both can agree. Like we felt like this team was not going to be an offensive juggernaut by any means. Right. We talked about like they do have some guys that can leave the yard and things like that. But the 2 guys that lead the team in home runs right now, We thought they were going to be impact guys. Like I know we did in our very first episode, we talked about Cayden Griez and kind of hyped him up. And I kind of pumped the brakes on that because the kid hadn't had a college at bat. But I saw he's like on the list for a Golden Spikes Award as a freshman. It's top 45 players. I mean, he's hitting 324 with 7 home runs. I mean, he has up to this point. I know he struggled a little bit this weekend, but for the most part, like he's lived up to the billing. James Parker, we knew he was going to be a good player, but I mean, at the beginning of the year, if you and I would have told us he would have been tied in he leads in almost every offensive category. We thought he'd play steady shortstop, be a good, probably around 300 hitter, get some extra base hits and things like that. French in limited action has hit 5 home runs, which is good. The one that, to me, that kind of limits the Clemson offense right now is Dylan Brewer. He shows flashes of being really good. I mean, he's hitting 220, but he has 6 doubles, 6 home runs, and even when he's hitting 220, he still has 25 RBIs, which tells me like he's getting the job done when guys are in scoring position. But he cannot give up those at bats when guys are not on base, and he's got to set the table. But overall, I hear what everyone says about the strikeouts and things like that, but I think that was going to come. Like, I think part of this team was like it was going to be built around pitching and defense, and the offense was going to do enough with the power that they had. Like, there were going to be some games where they just simply didn't produce. One area that I feel like that could be improved upon is, the ability to steal some bases. Right now, Brewer and Teodosio are tied with 5. And then there's Kier Meredith has 2, which he's, it's been on and off. And then I think it goes back to a couple of weeks ago is, the jumping in the lineup and things like that. Again, kind of like what we talked about with the pitching. Our cleanup hitter now was hitting 8th at the start of the year. Now, Grice has proved that he could do it, but there has been a lot of changing in that lineup. I feel like again, him and Parker have been the most consistent guys. So, from a whole, it's just up and down, which I think to me just kind of keeps it right at a C-. What you think?
Okay. All right. So, look, I mean, the fact is that Parker has been consistent all year. He had a bad weekend here at Miami, but he's been consistent all year, so I'm not giving him any grief. Okay, you have one bad weekend, I'm cool with that. All right, he's done a great job.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. He's done a great job, and we'd be lost without him right now for sure. Cayden Griez has really lived up to the billing. He's a freshman. He's going to make some mistakes. I'm okay with that as well. I think those have been the 2 key cogs right there in the middle of the lineup, like you mentioned. The issues are the others. They're the Kier Meredith or the Dylan Brewers and those types of hitters. It's just the fact that Dylan Brewer will hit a couple home runs or a couple big doubles, and then he'll strike out 4 times. He just goes on these waves, and he's got to hit for a better average with his power. He's got to learn to make more contact and hit with a better average. He should be up closer to 300, and I think he's shown the ability to be able to do that. I think he's getting home run hungry. I think that's what ails a lot of these Clemson hitters, to be honest with you, and that's part of the approach. That's part of their approach is swing, launch angle, all that kind of stuff. We get it. We know Monty Lee's philosophy and how they teach that. I just think when they see it a couple times, it always worries me because I'm like, oh man, now they're going to be looking to do it every time, and I think that's what bites Brewer a lot of these times because I think he's a better hitter than this. Plain and simple, he's a better than a 220 hitter, and he should be. Kier, we talked about him. I think we actually mentioned this last week. He's kind of one of those guys who came in. We thought he was going to be, a big time part of this lineup. He comes out, and I think his second game gets, what goes 4 for 5 or something. And then he hasn't really done all that much since. I'm not sure what his average is right now, but I can tell you this: it's not what I thought it was going to be. I thought he would be over a 300 hitter this year, and he's not. I don't think he's close to that. So that's disappointing as well. And they've shuffled everybody because nobody can stay consistent. Everybody has shown flashes again, kind of like the pitching. You show flashes, but at some point it's got to be, you've got to have that bad outing as the exception and not just kind of an every other time type thing. It's just happening too often so that we become this inconsistent hitting team and inconsistent pitching team. And I think that's the issue. Everybody's going to have a bad game. The best of the best are going to have a bad hitting game, are going to have a bad pitching game every now and then. I think with Clemson, the issue is it's happening more almost every other as opposed to 1 out of 4, 1 out of 5.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then kind of going into the team aspect, like it's been a tough stretch of late. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's 6 straight they've dropped. Was that right? And at some point you're sitting there and you're like, man, you've dropped 6 straight and 5 consecutive in the ACC, and you're 15 and 17. I mean, that kind of tells you. So I'm going with a C again. And that's where we're at. I mean, it's a 500 club. 15 and 17, 9 and 12. At this moment, you look at a postseason. It's gonna be a reality. Like right now, they're not in it. That I would think, but at the same time of that, like there is opportunity. You can throw off. Luckily, like you talked about, and this is the thing I want fans to. Fans may be frustrated and things like that, but do not forget what they did before 2 weeks ago, where they won 4 straight. So it's obviously like it's there. And as if anybody knows anything about baseball, like this happens. And it's frustrating because you see it, and I mean you see it at the professional ranks too. Teams go into Wolves, except for the Dodgers, but that's a whole nother deal. But so I'm going with a C. 9 and 12 in the ACC. Luckily this year the AC they're not out of the race as far as the ACC goes. I think there truly is potential for this team to make it into postseason play. They're just going to have to reset and get back to work. So that's what I got. I'm a little more optimistic than you are, but
no doubt.
But I know you. But I know, like you said, you go into every game with a clean mindset. So I know next weekend you'll do the same.
I do, and it's tough. And honestly, the only reason I'm giving them – I'm a tough grader, for one. If you watch any of our football shows on the Morgan Thomas Show, when we do our grade or report card for after a game, I'm a tough grader. And it's because I expect greatness, because I love Clemson. I love what they do. I know they've got it in them. I've seen it. All right, I've seen Clemson baseball at their best, and I know they can make it happen. And I think really the thing that gets me this year is the expectations. We had these lofty expectations at the beginning of the season. Houston, myself, Jason Priester, and I believe I don't know if Morgan was actually giving a prediction or if he was just kind of letting us go on, the baseball guys go on. But we all said we thought the pitching could potentially carry us to an appearance in Omaha. Finally break that regional bubble that we haven't been able to get past in forever. Get us past the Super, and at least get to Omaha. Not to say we were going to win it. I didn't think we had the offense necessarily to take home the ground or anything like that. But it just hasn't happened, and that's what's so disappointing. And look, who knows? Maybe they turn it around. Maybe the light comes on and everything's great, and that's what I'm hoping for. Again, I'm thinking we're going in and going to win this Wake Forest series this weekend. So we'll see how it works out. But yeah, it's been an interesting conversation for sure. You don't have any other grades, right? That was your last grade, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's all I got, unfortunately. And still, up to this point, the best thing we've seen this year is the camera crew, like the instant replays. Like we got to go back to that. I can't remember which weekend that was, but that was that took the cake as far as the cameras go. So
yeah, there's no doubt. I see some of these other reviews and the replays from these other places, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Clemson would have 6 different views of this thing zoomed in and everything, and we can't overturn a call from that. But it's been a lot of fun. There's been definitely some questionable calls, definitely some questionable overturns. None so much as we didn't get into, but the Braves non-overturn of the safe call, that was a disaster.
If that would have happened at Doug Kingsmore, they would have gotten that play right. So there's no question about that.
That was brutal. We won't get into that here because we could spend 30 minutes talking about that. But look, it's happening everywhere. It's not just in college baseball that bad calls are being made. Even the MLB offices are making disastrous calls. So it's always fun. But look, those are our midseason grades. For the good, the bad, and the ugly for our midseason grades, and that's okay. Hopefully, we'll improve from here on out. But if you like the video, make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure you like and follow on Facebook. Again, it's how we expand the brand and start the conversation about Tiger baseball. Make sure you get in with us next time.